And the next thing I'm going to do is the hook keeper. I don't know how well you can see that. Just a little standard hook keeper. I'm going to take my glue, get it hot, and then just dab a tiny little bit on the legs. I think I just laid that on the table and it's going to stick. So I got just a little bit of glue on the legs there. I remelt the glue and stick that right to the top of the rod. Make sure it's straight. Take my razor, trim off any excess glue that's on the outside of the little leg. What's inside won't matter because it'll be covered by the thread. I just like to trim the excess off the outside so that it doesn't mash into the thread when I'm wrapping. I'm going to tape the red down underneath so that I can make a little trim ring. I do not like this wrapping station. I do not like it at all. It's what I bought because when I first started doing this, it's what I could afford. It's pretty much the cheapest that you can buy. I do not like it. There's nothing wrong with the stand itself. What I do not like is that the thread stands upright and it makes it very difficult for the thread to feed off smoothly, just because it's changing angles. You have to keep the tension with those wing nuts exactly right. Too loose and you won't get a good tight wrap, which means it's not going to hold. Too tight on the wing nut and it puts too much resistance, and the thread going through this little eye here will create enough friction that it will actually snap. And I have had extensive amount of wrap come completely undone when that string breaks, and that is extremely annoying, especially when you've spent a bunch of time doing something decorative. Sometimes you can salvage it, but not very often. I'm not going to do anything real fancy here since I did the olive branch on this other little detail. I'm just going to go 3 times around and tuck that back under. Check the tension there. And then I'm just going to finish my wrap. As you can see, well, you may not can see it in that view, but you can probably see it in my overall view. I've got a power wrapper, and I like it, but it doesn't work so well with this type of stand, this open stand, because when you get it spinning, it tends to want to flop around. If I'm doing like a really long section of thread for a detail or for like a marbling effect or a tiger stripe effect, where I've got to run a long section of continuous thread, then I will use it. but just for wrapping eyes and doing these little details, I'm basically just using it to hold the butt of my rod and to keep a little tension on it, because I can, with that one, I can actually let go. As you can see, I can let go of the blank and it doesn't spin backwards. This motor has enough resistance to hold against the tension of the thread, whereas my drying motor, if I let go of the blank at all, it backspins on me and this thread will loosen, and then the whole thing gets unraveled and it just makes a mess. So I really like using this motor just to kind of hold the blank steady, even though I'm not using it for its intended purpose with this stand. And if I had one of those nice stands that actually held the rod, then I would most likely use the power wrapper more. I would actually let it wind the thread for me. But as I said, it doesn't work quite so well with this type of stand. So what I've done here is I'm creating my last couple of wraps, and I'm sure if you're watching my video, you've watched other people's videos and you've seen how you take just a little piece of fishing line or thread and you lay it under the thread that you're wrapping, and you wrap over it 7 or 8 or 10 or 12, I don't know. I mean, it just depends on what you find is best. I've wrapped over them anywhere from 8 to 12 times before, depending on what I'm doing and the diameter of the thread. And I think I wrapped over about 8 times with this one. Anyway, I'm just going to pull that back through. Some people pull it until it catches, then trim off the excess, then pull the rest through. That way you don't end up with any tag end sticking through. And I have done that, but for some strange reason I just don't feel extremely confident in the thread holding itself with just that small amount. If I pull it all the way through, then I know for a fact that that is all the way through the threads that I over wrapped and then pinched between 2 of the layers. And I know that that thread is in there and that it is not going to come out. Sometimes you do end up with a little bit of a tag end, but I have found that you can trim it pretty close. Can't talk and use a lighter. With a razor, and then just get ever so close to it with your lighter and burn it down, and it's not going to show and it's not going to go anywhere. Come back and trim the red off. Make sure that that's nice and tight on the back end or the front end here. Kind of burnish that a little bit, and it looks pretty good, nice and smooth. And now I've got black with just a little bit of red trim ring showing.